Welcome back on your Neighborhood Watch, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, where twice a month we talk about Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station outreach, crime prevention, law enforcement, what's going on in the Santa Clarita Valley. With me in the studio, Deputy Jonathan Wilson, Deputy Kevin Duxbury, and of course, Marissa Gervizo from the Santa Clarita Valley Domestic Violence Center. Thank you again, Marissa, for coming down here and kind of getting the message out about what you guys do, because it's so important. You know, we were just talking about the last segment, how many cases we see and how these things can spiral out of, into, a tragedy from, not to say that at any point it's not terrible what's going on, but it just can get so much worse if it's not addressed. And that's one of the things you want, that you guys do is help people, reconcile, get help, recognize they're in a domestic violence situation. Talk to me about what happens when somebody calls for a domestic violence call. I kind of want to get the deputy perspective. What do you guys do generally at the scene, the domestic violence report? Where is your responsibility, and what has they trained you to kind of do with those kind of situations?
Yeah, again, domestic violence is a lot like the 5150s in that, when we get there, we usually walk into a situation that's been very intense and possibly still going on.
And there's that unknown factor.
And from there, we have to, again, try and calm the situation, safely detain everybody, and then figure out what's going on from there. And in the event that there has been a domestic violence issue, we're obligated, we have to make an arrest.
Through California state law?
Through California state law. Sometimes it's the primary aggressor, sometimes it's both of them if it was a mutual domestic violence. People don't hear about those as much, but there are domestic violences where it's one-on-one and we end up taking both people to jail. And then from there, unfortunately, again, like the 5150s and the mental illnesses, once we've made our arrest on our bookings, they are now in the court system and being referred to great people like the Domestic Violence Center.
So there is that referral.
Yeah, from there they are the ones that take it from there. Probably the most power we have in a domestic violence situation, the most help we can give someone is to issue an emergency protective order, which is a temporary restraining order good for about 5 days, and that will give the victim and their children protection until they can go file a permanent restraining order.
If that's the...
But again, it's a piece of paper. It's just because I hand a suspect a temporary restraining order and say, you can no longer go around these people until the court has settled it, doesn't mean they won't. So that's where it goes over to our friends here at the Domestic Violence Center to help those people get the protection they need.
And I was just going to, that's one of the things you guys train people to do is how to react to those situations, right? Like if someone's handed the emergency protective order, they've gone to that step to get that separation, then you would go and show them how to keep that separation or what's the...
We have advocates at the Outreach Center that are legal advocates so that they can share with them or educate them on what are the next steps. We also provide advocates that can transport them to court and be there as a support system while they're in the court, because sometimes it's terrifying to have to face their abuser, and so we try to provide that support, emotional support for them as well. The classes, whether they're the domestic violence classes or the seeking safety classes, seeking strength, they are just educating them on how they can continue to move forward without having to have the abuse in their lives.
Because I would imagine also, too, part of the hardest challenge in that is you're leaving someone that you've been married to or you're living common law. That's half your life that you're now separating from. So that's part of the education there is what to do when you're on your own, or?
Well, yeah, it's all of that. It's empowerment. It's self-esteem. It's even parenting skills because they have children, therapy for their children, things like that they need to really just reassess the whole situation. Sometimes it's financial education. They don't even know how to balance a checkbook because they've had no financial control. So there's a lot of resources that we're able to provide them to give them the ability to stand on their own 2 feet and be strong for themselves and their family.
And again, these services and resources are free. They're available at the Santa Clarita Valley Domestic Violence Violence Center, and they're available in English and Spanish.
Yes.
And what's the number again if people want to call and get help or find out about the programs?
Oh, it's 661-259-8175.
And what's the biggest message that you can get out there to someone who's like on the fence about maybe calling the center and thinking like maybe this doesn't apply to me, or this isn't something that I need to do, this is for somebody else?
Well, the one thing I think that everybody needs to understand is there isn't a stereotype. There isn't a person that looks like they're in DV. Anybody can be in DV, and so it can happen to anybody. And some of these women are embarrassed, and some of these women don't want anybody to know. So being an upstander is important too, and that's someone that if you know someone that you think might be in a domestic violence situation, it's just calling and saying, I think someone might be in this situation, just to get those resources and to be able to say something's happening here.
What would you do in that scenario if you were contacted about
If
a concern
someone
for
were to contact us and say, I think someone's into domestic violence.
like their uncle or their aunt or something?
Well, if they're telling us this is what's happening, we're going to let them know that there are resources out there that we can help them. We'll give them information about the 259 help number so that they can, find a shelter, just something to be able to help them to say that they're not alone. It takes 9 times for someone to finally leave an abuser, up to 9 times. So they need to know that there are people there to help. They're afraid, they're dependent. There's some women that are undocumented. They need to know that they can find help that's out there.
Excellent. And we want to talk a little bit more about that, and we're going to put you on the hot seat.
Okay.
When we come back from this commercial break on your Neighborhood Watch, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Neighborhood Watch for our last segment, where twice a month we talk about Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station outreach, crime prevention, law enforcement, and what's happening in the Santa Clarita Valley. Deputy Kevin Duxbury, Deputy Jonathan Wilson, and Marissa Rizzo, thank you again for coming by. And let's put Marissa on the hot seat in a moment. First, we're going to talk about some outreaches coming up with the Domestic Violence Center. Also want to mention that there have been some teen dating violence workshops that you guys have been hosting with the Sheriff Station.
Yes, when one of our program directors has been working and with expanding the awareness among the teens and the youth. So we have the Close to Home program, and it's just teaching the youth about healthy relationships because it starts young. So
that was one of the things that we saw in the statistics that was put out from the center, was that it was some really high number of teens that were involved in these types of situations. Probably most of them unaware because they don't have the experience to recognize healthy versus maybe.
Well, it could be a number of things. It could be what they're seeing when they're growing up, like that they don't know any other relationships, or it's their first relationship and they don't know how to say no, or they don't know. They think, oh, he loves me because he's jealous or whatever it is, or he's constantly calling me, and they don't realize that could lead to further abuse. So what we're wanting to do is educate them about healthy relationships, and it's not just romantic relationships, it's also friendships, because it could start with a friendship that's an abusive, and so then you get used to the abuse, and then you don't know that you don't have to put up with that type of abuse. There are healthy relationships out there. So, and
then the outreach going on to support those types of programs and services. There's an event coming up. Let's get the word out about that.
Yes, June 12th. It's Bob Keller's Boys Night Out. It's the local men are raising money and standing up against domestic violence. And if you want to know more information about it, you can go to www.dvc-scv.org.
It's DVC-whatever you call it.
Yes,
scv.org. Okay. Definitely want to get the word out about the site. And again, the number is 259-HELP?
Yeah, it's 259-HELP is the it's the hotline, or you can do 259-8175, which is the outreach center.
Oh, okay. And I think it's time, Deputy Wilson, to put Marissa on the hot seat.
Dum dum dum.
A hot seat. Well, can you sing something, Justin? Do you have a tune?
Hot seat.
I'm so glad you don't have a microphone right now. Okay.
That was scary.
Yeah, everybody is a little alarmed, and we have 2 armed people in the room, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Marissa, first question. What is your original hometown?
Baytown, Texas.
Baytown, Texas?
Yes, next to
That's
Houston.
a drive. If you've ever driven through Texas, too. You get on the 10, and it's like exit 967, and you're like, oh, my Lord.
Yes. I could see the Gulf of Mexico at the end of my street.
Oh, right on. That's a view.
Wow.
Yeah. Best album of all time?
I'm going to have a hard time with that because I'm really eclectic when it comes to music. I like everything except for country. So,
But you can only take one CD with you in the car for this trip.
it's going to have to be a mixed CD then.
Oh, come on.
I don't think you're gonna get an answer. I don't think you're gonna get an answer.
You know, a song that I just probably. I'm stuck. Honestly,
Oh
I
my
am.
goodness!
Pearl Jam.
You know,
I'm a big
okay,
Pearl Jam
that
fan.
is a good
I'm a
answer.
big
All
Pearl
right,
Jam
all
fan.
right.
How about
10.
that?
She's bringing 10 on the trip.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. The reason I'm sorry, I almost skipped a question there. First job you ever had?
I worked at Target for 9 years.
The retail sector. All right.
Yes.
For me, it was quick copies, but okay, okay. Justin, what was your first job there? Snickers?
Pizza Hut delivery.
Pizza Hut delivery. There you go. Reason you became an advocate?
A big thing for me is because I'm Latina, and so I see a lot of it's just accepted. It's the way it's supposed to be. Women are subservient to their husbands, and I didn't like seeing that growing up. It touched me in a different way in the sense that I just felt like women should be equals and not. And so that's why I got
Changed
involved.
that on a cultural.
Yeah, it's
level.
a cultural. So I work with the Spanish women. I do the Spanish DV classes, and I try to work with them as well and let them know that you don't have to be in a controlling relationship.
Deal. Favorite meal while you're on the job?
While I'm on the job, I would have to say In-N-Out.
All right, that's a great answer. Best part of the job aside from helping people?
I think is seeing the women when they are successful. I think it's really it touches in a whole new level to see these women and when they're so grateful and appreciative, and then the children as well. That's very touching to see how they are getting resources and seeing their mother happy and not having to be afraid to wake up in the morning and things like that.
What's the biggest difference that you've seen from, and I'm just going to use the example of a woman, but who's been through the program, completed the courses successfully? What's the biggest difference that you see? Confidence.
You see these women that will look at you, will look you in the eye now. They will smile. They stand with their head a little bit taller. They feel like they can conquer the world. They feel like they can make it happen.
Good deal. And apologies, this question was we usually have deputies on the hot seat, so I'm going to ask you favorite cop movie or TV show.
Beverly Hills Cop, the series.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, classic. I'll take it classic. Yeah.
All right. And the number one, again, we kind of already asked you, but number one piece of advice that you have for people, for your clients and potential clients?
I think awareness is the biggest thing that anybody can do for the community, is just being aware of what DV, domestic violence, is, and being able to say or know that there's help out there. They're not alone. There's people that are more than willing. There's other I shouldn't say ex, but there are previous clients that come in and are willing to help. So they've been there, and they can let them know that it can happen. They can do it.
Deputy Wilson, Deputy Duxbury, Marissa, thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to come down here and talk to us and spread the word with the community of what you guys are doing out there. This has been the Neighborhood Watch, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.